मजलिस की मकबूलियत के लिए बरमतर सलावत।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Tonight's lecture, which as you heard a few moments ago is titled True Ownership, revolves around two related matters. The first matter is the true ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of everything that exists. And the second matter is a person's certainty and knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns absolutely everything that exists. So inshallah tonight we will be discussing this, and we will see that actually it is a very relevant topic for us to discuss, especially bearing in mind the place where we all live. Our communities, our societies where we live in the Western world are characteristic of being consumer societies. There are societies where there is a lot of materialism. And so these type of places where we live, whether it be here in America or in the UK or anywhere else where these characteristics exist, really tell us that we need to make sure about concepts such as the true ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in these type of societies, concepts such as this and Allah owning everything and us being really servants to Allah, not owning anything, these are all quite alien concepts in this type of society. So it's very important for us to have a very clear understanding of where our beliefs lie when it comes to the possession of things and the possession of materialistic objects. Also, it's important for us and relevant for us at this particular time, because being in the days of Ramadan, we are in the month of giving. We're in the month of sharing with others who are less fortunate than ourselves, those things that we possess. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, He loves when we give in His name. Especially in this holy month, we are recommended to give even more than in other months during the year. And of course, very soon we will be paying our zakatul fitrah. And so again, we will be giving in the way of Allah to people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So the timing of this topic, not only the place where we all live, but also the timing that in the month that we are all in right now, the holy month of Ramadan, very close to Zakatul Fitrah, it tells us that this is an important topic for us to discuss in this place and at this particular time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now when we want to see exactly how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be said to own all existing things, well, of course, the first point of reference is the Holy Quran itself. When we look at the Quran and we look at those verses that talk about Allah owning things, we see that there are two words which are used in these verses that seem quite similar when we first look at them. In fact, they even come from the same root. the Mim, the Lam and the Kaf. And we see that actually these refer to the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's very easy just to pass by these verses as if the both words mean exactly the same thing. But we know, even from previous lectures that I gave over here, whenever there is a difference in wording in the verses of the Quran, there is a reason for that difference. Allah is pointing to some difference between this word and the other word which sounds or looks similar. These two words are mulk and malakut. As I mentioned, they're from the same root, and we are told in the Quran that Allah possesses both of these in His hands. So what's the difference between mulk and malakut, and what do they tell us about the ownership of Allah of everything that exists? Well, first of all, let's look at one of these verses. In Surah Al-Mulk, the chapter is called Al-Mulk, and so it is to do with ownership. The very first verse tells us, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكُ وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. It means that blessed is Allah, the one in whose hands is the mulk. Now let's see what this means. That in whose hands is the mulk, and He has power over everything. And then in other verses, such as the verse we heard a few moments ago, it is the last verse of Surah Al-Yasin. We are told that actually Allah possesses in His hands the malakut of everything. For subhanalladhi biyadihi malakutu kulli shay wa ilayhi turja'un. So we say in this verse, glory be to the one. He is pure of all imperfections, the one who possesses in His hands the malakut of everything, and to whom we return. So now what is the difference between these two? Now when we look at this, we see that actually, according to what our great mufassirin, the great commentators and exegetes of the Quran say, and also those who are our great scholars when it comes to the lexicography, so meaning of words and the origin of words, the etymology of words, how they develop and what they mean and their root, they tell us that there is a fundamental difference between these two words. Mulk refers to the physical aspect of everything that exists. It means all the things that we can sense with our senses, the apparent aspect, and those things that are really to do with the physical being of everything that exists. So it refers to what we call the corporeal element, or the physical material element of all things. Whereas malakut refers to something at a deeper level. Malakut does not refer to the physical and material aspect of everything. Rather, it refers to the spiritual aspect and the inner reality of everything that exists. So, according to these scholars, everything has two levels. Well, everything has many levels of existence, but two fundamental levels of existence are the malakuti level and the mulki level. The mulki level, which is really the level at this dunya, the level of this world, the physical material level, is totally dependent on the malakuti level. The malakuti level being that spiritual, inner, hidden reality of everything that we see around us. So it is like this. It is like saying if you were to take a bulb. Now I know some people here, they are very much interested in botanical things, myself included. So let's look at this example. A bulb, when we plant it under the ground, it has everything that it needs for that plant's survival. We have professors here, mashallah, who can tell us more about how it all works, but in a very simplified way, it is like a reservoir of all the energy and all the food and nutrition that it needs for the flower that eventually stems from that to grow and to flourish. So now, when we look at this, we've planted the bulb under the ground. We don't see it anymore. But over a period of time, the flower develops from that bulb. And what we see is that beautiful flower, the tulip, the daffodil, whatever it might be. So now, if we were to look at this example and compare it to how the mulk is and the malakut is, what would be the hidden, what would be the source of that flower? It would be the bulb. This is the malakut in one way. The bulb and the hidden inner reality of the flower is the bulb. Whereas what do we see? We just see that beautiful flower. That's the mulki element of everything that exists. What we see is only the apparent physical material aspect of everything. The reality, what that depends on, is the malakuti reality, that bulb which we no longer see. But that higher reality is the source. That's what supports the material aspect of everything that exists. That's what gives it life. That's what gives it its material being. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now we understand from this that Allah possesses both dimensions of all existing things. What we can call the malakuti, which is sometimes translated as the dominion of everything, and the mulki aspect, which is sometimes translated as the sovereignty or the material or corporeal aspect of everything. So now let's take this a step further. How does this enable us to appreciate what Allah owns? And then how does it enable us to give more readily, more easily in the way of Allah? Well, the more we understand and the more we appreciate that Allah really owns everything, it becomes easier for us to give in His way. This is the key point that I would like to emphasize on in this lecture. That the more certainty we have that Allah truly owns everything, the inner aspect and the outer aspect, then it becomes easier for us to give things in His way. Why? Because we realize that we do not actually own anything in reality. Everything belongs to Allah, and so if everything belongs to Him, it should be easy for us to give in His way. Our sixth holy Imam, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, he puts this very beautifully in a very famous tradition known as the tradition of Unwan al-Basri. Perhaps you've heard of this. It's when Imam Sadiq alayhi salam teaches this 94-year-old seeker of truth who comes to the Imam and he's asking him to guide him and to help him. And then the Imam, he tells him a whole load of very spiritual and important advice. And it's a very long tradition, and if Allah gives us the tawfiq, maybe one day we can discuss that. But in one of the phrases he says in this long tradition to Unwan al-Basri is that a true servant of Allah is he who does not regard everything that Allah has granted him with. He does not regard those things that Allah has blessed him with as being his own possessions. This is one of the characteristics of the true abd, as Imam Jafar Sadiq tells Unwan al-Basri, that the true abd does not regard anything, any blessing that Allah has granted him with as his own, as if he possesses it. And then he says what the result of this is. In this tradition, it's really remarkable. He mentions some characteristics of the true abd, and then he says the benefit of this. So the benefit of this particular characteristic is that it makes it very easy for that servant to give in the way of Allah. Whatever Allah has given him, he finds it very easy to give in the way of Allah. So now, let's look at this in a bit more detail. How does this work? Well, first of all, in Surah An-Nahl, we are told in verse number 53 that everything that Allah gives us is, of course, originates from Him. He is the source of all blessings. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever ni'mah and blessing you have is all from Allah. So now, when we look at it like this, we see that actually, the more we understand and the more we have certainty that Allah truly possesses everything, it becomes very easy for us to give in His way. So at one level, it is correct to say that I possess my clothes, I possess my cell phone, I possess my car, and so on and so forth. Yes, That's correct. At one level, it is absolutely fine and it is proper to say that. And therefore, we have to abide by the laws of property. We have to abide by the laws of ownership. But at a higher level, at that very topmost level, we know from these verses and this discussion that we have been having that Allah is not just the Khaliq of everything, He is the Malik of everything as well. So then when He is the Malik of everything, it becomes easier for us to give in His way. Now, in order to take this to a deeper level of discussion, there is a very important discussion that we need to delve into, and that is the levels of certainty. How certain are we really, if we ask ourselves this, do we really have total yaqeen and certainty that Allah possesses everything, or do we just kind of know it at a superficial level? In fact, when we look at this, we will see there are 3 levels of knowing and having certainty about everything. This is something that we need to explore in a bit more detail. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what are the 3 levels of knowing and having certainty about anything? The 3 levels, I'm sure you've heard about them. They are, first of all, ilmul yaqeen, then it is aynul yaqeen, and then it is haqqul yaqeen. What are the differences and how can this discussion help us with this whole area of true ownership and giving easily in the way of Allah? Well, let me explain it by use of an example. Let's say there's a fire a little way down the road and we have knowledge about this fire. Now, we can have knowledge about this fire at different levels, depending on our certainty that there's a fire there. So, what is ilmul yaqeen? First of all, ilmul yaqeen is at the lowest level. It means that we have knowledge of certainty. Our knowledge is basically at the intellectual level. So what we do here, we put 2 and 2 together and we say that there is a fire there. So for example, we see that there's smoke rising and we intellectualize. We put 2 and 2 together and we say that, well, there's no smoke without fire. Cause and effect. If there's smoke, there must be a fire. So we have certainty that there's a fire here, but based on this type of reasoning. That's ilmul yaqeen, the knowledge of certainty or the knowledge of certitude. Now, at a higher level, how about if we go towards that fire now? And we are not just putting 2 and 2 together, but we are actually seeing the fire now. Isn't that a higher level of certainty? Again, we know there's a fire exists, but now we are seeing it. So we can say that actually our level of knowledge about this fire is at a higher level. This is known as the level of aynul yaqeen, or the vision of certitude. So now it is really right there. We are just 30-40 yards away from it and we are seeing it. Then we get to the level known as haqqul yaqeen, which is the highest level of yaqeen and certitude. That is the truth of certitude. So now, taking this example, we are not just intellectualizing that where there's smoke there must be a fire. Neither are we seeing the fire, but now we are in the fire. So if somebody was to ask us at that time, does the fire exist? With what type of certainty would we respond? We would respond with the utmost certainty, isn't it? Because we are in the fire, we are burning in the fire. We would say, what are you talking about? Does the fire exist? I'm in it, I'm experiencing it. This is the level of haqqul yaqeen, the highest level. This tells us that at this level, there is a type of union between the known object and the knower. So we are the knowers, we are the ones who are the alim, if you like, we know something, whereas that object is the known object, it is ma'loom. So there is a type of union between alim and ma'loom, or arif and ma'roof, however you want to term it. Now, at this level, there's absolute certainty, no doubt whatsoever. So now let's relate it to our discussion about Allah's ownership of all things. Let's ask ourselves while we're going through this exercise, at what level of certainty do we know that Allah really is the owner of the mulk and the malakut? Do we know it at the level of ilmul yaqeen? Or do we know it at the level of ainul yaqeen? Or do we know it at the level of haqqul yaqeen? If we know it at the level of ilmul yaqeen, it means that we know it at the intellectual level, that yes, Allah owns everything, and therefore we give in His way. Alhamdulillah, this is a praiseworthy level. It is not bad at all. And if people have this certainty, it is still certainty. It is knowledge. Because now they will give in the way of Allah, but there will be some difficulty here. When people with ilmul yaqeen, they want to give in the way of Allah, it's a little bit difficult for them. They are still a little bit attached to their belongings. It is at that intellectual level only. It's not sitting in their hearts that Allah truly owns everything, so why don't I give everything in the way of Allah? So there is a bit of attachment when they give whatever it might be. Also, their giving actually is limited. They don't give so freely for every single thing. They give mainly for the wajib things. And they give mainly for some mustahab things as well. Because they are still attached to those objects, to that money, to that food, to those belongings. Sometimes it might be their time. When Allah says that every blessing is from Allah, it doesn't just mean money. It doesn't just mean possessions. It means whatever blessing we have. It could be our time. We can give time to people. It could be knowledge. It could be skills. It could be experience that we have accumulated over many, many years. These are all blessings. But when the person with ilmul yaqeen gives it, he gives it with a bit of difficulty because his heart is still attached to those things. Now, how about somebody who has ainul yaqeen, that Allah possesses everything? For that person, it makes it easier for him to give in the way of Allah. Because now his level of certainty is higher. So he knows that actually all of these things, they're not mine. I'm just being entrusted with them on a temporary basis. Allah is just allowing me to look after them on a temporary basis. And so if Allah tells me give in this way or that way, of course I should give. For that person, it's not difficult. And he will give more readily, more easily, just like our Sixth Holy Imam says, that the sign of an abd is that he does not regard his possessions that Allah has blessed him with as his own. And it makes it easy for him to give in the way of Allah. But how about the person who truly believes with haqqul yaqeen that Allah possesses absolutely everything? For that person, not only is it not difficult to give in the way of Allah, not only is it easy to give in the way of Allah, but he actually takes pleasure in giving in the way of Allah. For him, this is bliss. This is happiness. This is true ubudiyyah and servitude to one Lord. He does not feel difficulty at all. In fact, he wants to give more and more and more until he totally sacrifices himself. This is the level of haqqul yaqeen, because he appreciates that everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like that verse I recited at the beginning of this lecture. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَالنُّسُكِي وَمَحْيَاي وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah says to the Holy Prophet that say, my salah, so my prayer, my nusuk, meaning my acts of worship, my life and my death, all of them belong to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. This is the level of the Holy Prophet. This is the level of the Aim alayhimus salam. And of course, the ultimate sacrifices we saw were on the plains of Karbala. One of the reasons why all the shuhada of Karbala were able to give not just themselves, but their body parts and their family members and everything that they owned was because for them it was a matter of pleasure. They truly understood that everything we have belongs to Allah. So it's very easy for Abu Abdullah and for all the shuhada to give whatever they have. It's very easy for Abu al-Fazl al-Abbas to give his arms for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give his eye, to give his whole entire life. And the same with all the shuhada and the usara, all the martyrs and the captives of Karbala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now let's take this and look at it. Which level of yaqeen do we have? Is it simply at the intellectual level, or is it at that higher level where we are seeing with our insight that Allah owns everything, or is it haqqul yaqeen where we now have pleasure? It's like this example, that somebody, a friend of ours says to us that, please Ahmed, please Ali, please Fatima, take this laptop and use it in X way, use it in Y way. Now, we are taking that laptop from that person. Can we use it in any other way? He's only permitted us to use it in X way and Y way. That's the only way. Or he says, take this laptop and pass it on to Ali. Can we pass it on to Zainab? Of course we cannot. We have to do as he has told us, because it doesn't belong to us. It's the same thing with all of our blessings. Allah is saying that, look, I'm giving you these blessings, but use them and enjoy your life, everything, but use them in a particular way, in X way, in Y way. Give what I have given you in a particular way. Can we say that, oh Allah, no, I want to give it in a different way? I want to use it in a different way? We can't. It's the same thing. If everything is possessed by Him, we must use those things in His way. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now, just to get some practical advice, as I was saying, the focus of all of these lectures, inshallah, has been to have both the theory and the practice as well, so that we really try and make spiritual progress in this holy month. How can we give better and more easily in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and increase our yaqeen that He has true ownership of everything? Again, our sources of advice is the Quran and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. So when we look at the Quran, we are told how we can increase our yaqeen. In Surah Al-Hijr, verse number 99, Allah tells us very easily, if you want to increase your yaqeen, worship me sincerely and truthfully. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Worship your Lord until there comes to you yaqeen. So when we worship Allah sincerely and truthfully, then we get illuminated. We understand more about Him, about His attributes, about the reality of what He possesses. And we are able to give more easily in the way of Allah. So that's one thing. When we worship, let's try and make our worship very sincere. Lillahi Rabbil Alameen only. Qurbatan ilallah only. We should try to exclude all other thoughts, all other intentions, all other motives, and worship Him sincerely. For He tells us, if you do this, you will get to a level of yaqeen. Secondly, we can certainly break our relationship and break our attachment to worldly things. It's very difficult sometimes to give in the way of Allah, like I was saying, if we are attached to things. Now, of course, we all need possessions. We all need worldly things for ourselves, for our family members. But the key thing is not to have our hearts attached to those things, so that we are able to give them and break away from them without feeling resentment, without it being difficult for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Ali Imran, again, another beautiful piece of advice. He says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Certainly you will not attain the level of righteousness unless and until you give what you hold dear. So when we look at what we hold dear, If we give in the way of Allah those things, we will begin to detach ourselves from them. By giving, we become less attached. Even those things that we hold dear, it's difficult sometimes, but we should start slowly and, but steadily. Giving things that we hold dear, it might be a little bit of money, it might be a possession, it might be time, it might be knowledge, it might be skills, it might be the fruits of our experience. When we give, we become detached from that thing. That detachment has a reciprocal effect. It has a spiritual effect on us. Next time, we are able to give even more. That again has an effect on our spirituality. So we're able to give more and vice versa, and it comes back and forth, back and forth. And that's how we are able to detach. But we have to start by giving away, in the way of Allah, things that we hold dear. Now, just one or 2 points about this. How can we give easily and detach ourselves from these things? A couple of things we can do. First of all, we can look at the social benefits of doing this. When we see where our money is going, when we see where our possessions, our knowledge, the fruits of our experience are going, this gives us motivation. I'll give you an example. There was a great scholar by the name of Sayyid Jawad Amuli. And one day he's having his meal, and when he's having his meal, there's a knock on the door. He opens the door, and it's the servant of his teacher. His teacher was Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. Now, Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum has sent this servant. He says to the servant, okay, what do you want? And he says that Sayyid Mahdi, your teacher, is saying, come and join him for dinner. So he goes with the servant to Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum's house. Over there, Sayyid Mahdi, he welcomes him, but then he says to him, do you not fear Allah? And he says, what have I done? Has something happened? He says that your neighbor for the last 7 days has only been eating dates for himself and for his family members. And even those dates, he managed to get them as a loan from the shopkeeper. And today he went to the shopkeeper to get some more things, and the shopkeeper rejected him. He says, do you not fear Allah that you are having your meal and you are filling your stomach and your neighbor is like this? Now, of course, Sayyid Jawad himself was a very pious person. He simply didn't know. He never intended for this to happen. He never wanted to, not on purpose help this person. It's just he didn't know. And he says that, really, I never knew about this. And he said, yes, if you had known about it, it would have been worse. But I am disappointed with you. Look what he says. I am disappointed with you because you never took the time and pains to find out about your neighbor. Why should it be that we sometimes hear about a poor person in the community, someone who's struggling amongst the mu'mineen, our neighbor maybe who's in a difficult time? So the lesson we gain from this, first of all, is that let's be more attentive to people in need. Let's not wait until we've heard that so-and-so is in need. Let's not wait until it's the time of Eid that we give zakatul fitra for the poor and needy. No, during the year, let's be more attentive and try to find out who are really in need. Secondly, he tells him that now go with my servant with these containers of food and say to that poor neighbor of yours that I want to join you for dinner. So this again is telling us that when we want to help people, let's do it in a very respectful way. Of course, mu'mineen are doing all of these things. It's just a reminder that he says, take this food and go with my servant and say to your neighbor that I want to join you for a meal. So he doesn't feel embarrassed, so that he joins you and at the same time he gets fed, his family get fed, and he doesn't feel as if you're doing him a favor. So that's the second lesson. Very respectfully help people. And the third thing he says, take this money, when you go to his house, very discreetly, very secretly, hide it under his carpet or hide it under his mat. So again, a great lesson for us when we want to give in the way of Allah, that it doesn't matter. In fact, the person should not even know that we are helping them. Why is it important for that person to know that we are helping them? It's between us and Allah. So when we help people, let's also do it secretly, discreetly. It is sufficient for us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we are doing. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And finally, how can we increase our yaqeen that Allah owns everything and give more easily and more readily in His way? The other thing that we can do is not just look at the social benefits like this. When we see the benefits of helping others, we get motivated and we feel like giving more, but also personal benefits for us. The Quran tells us that when we give in the way of Allah, it comes back to us even at a greater level. It is somehow multiplied many times over. It has more barakah. It will benefit us first and foremost. We might not always see it in this world, but it remains. The verse tells us, whatever is with you will just be spent. Whatever is with Allah is baq. It means it is baqi. It remains. It will benefit us. I will just end with this final story, and then we will inshallah pray a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, this final story is from the blessed life of Nabiul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So one day, Aisha and the family of the Holy Prophet had slaughtered an animal, and they had given away many parts of the animal to other people. So now when the Holy Prophet hears about this, he asks Aisha that from this animal, what has remained? Okay, what has remained? And Aisha says that one leg of this animal has remained. Look at the response of Rasulullah. He says, no, one leg has not remained. What has remained is everything that you have given. What has not remained is the leg. Meaning that what has really remained with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is really going to benefit you in the akhirah is what you have given. What has not remained is what is here with us in the dunya still. That leg of meat, that's what has not remained. So this is telling us that when we want to give in the way of Allah, there are these things that we can do. As a summary, therefore, we looked at this whole topic of true ownership, and we saw how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about His ownership in the Quran, He uses the words mulk sometimes, and sometimes He uses the word malakut. The inner dimension and the outer dimension of everything are said to be in His hands. So when we look at it like this, we see that He has true ownership of absolutely everything at all levels. We are just having these possessions on trust at a very superficial level. We are not really the owners of these things. As the sixth holy Imam says, an abd, one of his signs is that he regards everything that he has as being the possessions of Allah, not his own. And therefore the benefit of this is that that abd is able to give more easily, more readily in the way of Allah. It depends on our level of yaqeen, how much yaqeen we have that Allah owns everything. Is it at the level of ilmul yaqeen or ainul yaqeen or haqqul yaqeen? The more yaqeen we have, the more easily it is for us to give. We can increase our yaqeen by worshipping Allah sincerely, by giving and becoming less attached to our worldly possessions, seeing the social and the personal benefits of giving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's pray to Allah. Oh Allah, enable us to increase our certainty in your ownership of all things, inshallah. Oh Allah, therefore enable us to give more easily and readily in your way. Oh Allah, enable us to live according to the teachings of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, enable us to live and die with the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen. Oh Allah, bless this place and all those who frequent it. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Bring relief to all those who are facing difficulty around the world, and hasten the appearance of our 12th Holy Imam, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. Wassalamu alaikum.
इसका काम उसी को साथे भूलना जाना नहीं भूलूंगा रोशन आ जाओ एक मिनट आ जाओ खड़ा हो जाओ इनको कह दिया था मैंने और किसी को देखा नहीं था तो नमाज के लिए सो गए थे वो तो हाँ यू आपकी नमाज
Thank you. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله توكلت على الحي القيوم الذي لا يموت والحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله صلى أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين علي حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم اجعل قلبي عمل عيشك اجعل لي عندك بنبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وتقرب قرارا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. محمدا رسول الله.
اللهم صل على محمد
وأن عليا ولي الله.
اللهم صل على محمد
حجة الله.
اللهم صل على
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. والحكم محمد على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وتجاوز عن قلبه مع استغفر الله الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحمد الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد فذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. الحمد لله. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد يا خير المسؤولين ويا خير المعطين. ارزقني وارزق عيالي من فضلك فإنك ذو الفضل العظيم. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. تسبيح حضرت فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها पढ़ लीजिए.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم. أنت رب الذين الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر أكرمته وكرمته وشرفته وسلمته ولا شهور. وهو الشهر الذي فرضت قيامه على وهو الشهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والقرآن. وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلت خيرا من ألف شهر. ويا ذا المن ولا يمن عليه من على بكفاك أخرجي من النار ومن عليه وادخل الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم اغفر لأهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغفر للفقير. اللهم اشف كل جائع. اللهم اغفر كل عريان. اللهم اغفر دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروه. اللهم ارزق كل غريب. اللهم ارزق كل اسير. اللهم اصلح كل فاسد من امور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم صدق فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سؤالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم حفظ عنا الدين وامنا من الفاسد انك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
محمد رسول الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
محمد رسول الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
علي ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله.
اللهم صل على
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحمد الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد.
اللهم صل على इज्तिमा से दुआ आगा
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد يا حميد بحق محمد يا علي بحق علي يا فاطر بحق فاطمة يا محسن بحق الحسن والحسين اللهم نسألك الراحة عند الموت والعفو عند الحساب اللهم ارزقنا الصحة في البدن والبركة في الرزق واليقين في القلب والإخلاص في العمل اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين السلام عليكم يا عمة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته
اللهم صل على محمد
He's from the same country as yours.
Leander from Kampala?
Yeah. That's what I was going to tell another guy from
प्रेस का आपको पता है यार अभी तक याद है कि मैं
इसको देखकर बचा के रहना
बाकी आपके लिए खड़ा होकर नहीं है कुछ काजू साहब आपका पहला नाम ना तो बिल्कुल इबादत करते रहिएगा थोड़ा सा पेट को बिठा देंगे आपसे क्या है हमारी किताब में कब से मुझे किताबें बट रही थी हमारे ऑफिस मुझे मेरे बराबर मैंने 3-4 दुकानें छोड़ी कोई बहुत पड़ता है कोई लिखा उसको दे कर ली